Yo, what's going on guys? It's your boy Zinx here, coming at you today with another video. In today's video, we're going to take a look at all the upcoming CDL matches on the road to Major 3 hosted by Optic Texas. In this series, we're going to break down every matchup and give you my prediction on how each team will perform and who I think will win each series. Let me know what you guys think about this becoming a weekly series on my channel, and be sure to comment down below your predictions for the matches as well. Before we break down this week's lineup, let's take a moment to reflect on a hectic week 1 of qualifiers. First up on Friday, the new Legion roster featuring two Reals return to the league upset the Major 2 runners-up in a 3-1 fashion. A rematch from Winners Round 1 saw the New York Subliners get payback against the Minnesota Rocker in another Game 5 Round 11, and a new and improved Boston Breach took down the Toronto Ultra in a 3-1 fashion, despite a poor performance from the new pickup Beans. On Saturday, London Royal Ravens shocked everyone by taking Boston to a Map 5, but the new Boston roster finally clutched a Game 5 to take the series 3-2. The Major 2 champions displayed their dominance by running over a brand new Mutineers 3-0. Ghosty, the most excited change of roster mania, made his debut as a passionate Optic Texas took down the LA Gorillas in a Game 5, and to the shock of absolutely everybody, Seattle Surge finally broke their 11-game search and destroy losing streak and mopped the floor with Minnesota Rocker 3-0. And finally on Sunday, building off their win against Rocker, New York Subliners made the new Florida roster's weekend from bad to worse by beating them in a 3-0 fashion to make the Mutineers 0-6 on the weekend. Following their loss to Boston, Toronto opted to drop Standy to the bench and add Hixie to the starting lineup, and the new Ultra roster took down Clayster and the Legion in a 3-1 fashion. And in the most anticipated match of the weekend, LA Thieves got their revenge on FaZe for beating them in the grand finals of Major 2 by a scoreline of 3-1. These results left the Major 3 standings looking like this. NYSL and Breach sit atop the standings at 2-0. Seattle and Optic are just beneath them, sitting at 1-0. Four teams, including both of our Major 2 finalists, sit mid-table at 1-1. The 11th and 12th place teams in the overall standings sit just above the bottom at 0-1. And with everything left to do in the next 2 weeks, Mutineers and Rockers sit at the bottom of the standings at 0-2. Now that we're all caught up, let's take a look at this week's lineup. Starting with Friday's matches. First up, Atlanta FaZe versus London Royal Ravens. I think FaZe bounced back from their loss against the Thieves and wiped the floor with a struggling Ravens side in a 3-0 fashion. Next up, Optic Texas versus Toronto Ultra. While LAG did manage to take Optic to a Map 5, the new Optic roster showed a ton of talent and promise heading into this week's matches. To the surprise of absolutely no one, I think Optic takes this one, but I do think it will go the distance either in a 3-1 or 3-2. The final match on Friday features the Boston Breach versus LAG. While LAG have looked exceptional in Hardpoint and starting to look better in Search, their control just hasn't been there this season. So I do think that even if this map does go the distance, Boston are going to take the series just like they did in Losers Round 2 of Major 2. Saturday's first matchup features currently top-seeded NYSL going up against Toronto Ultra. Despite Ultra being fresh from their match against Optic the day before, NYSL has had Ultra's number pretty much the entire NW2 season, and I don't think that will change with this matchup. I see Subliners closing this out in a 3-1 fashion. The next match, which is the one I'm looking forward to watching the most, features a Seattle Surge fresh off a 3-0 win up against a Thieves team thriving off the momentum following their win over FaZe. In my opinion, this series entirely depends on who turns up on the day, and it's going to come down to who wants it more. But I do think that Thieves will humble Seattle in this series in a 3-1 fashion. The next match features a struggling Florida Mutineers against a strong Boston Breach. While I do want this new Florida Mutineers roster to succeed, they just haven't looked good in any game mode so far, regardless of the map set. Granted, their last 2 matches were up against the 2 best teams in the CDL, but this team needs a lot of work, and if they don't come to play, Boston will definitely sweep them in a 3-0 again. The final match of the day is an interesting one. Las Vegas Legion against Atlanta FaZe. Two of our strongest teams at Search and Destroy in the CDL right now. It is always interesting watching these two go head-to-head. While FaZe have looked dominant in Respawn, this matchup always has a tendency to go the distance for whatever reason. If FaZe win the control, I think they take the series 3-1. However, if Legion somehow manage to steal a Respawn, there is everything to play for in that Map 5. And finally, Sunday. The first match of the final day is a dogfight at the bottom. London Royal Ravens versus Los Angeles Gorillas. A chance for two of the worst teams in the CDL to gain 10 points and move up in the overall standings. Both teams' strongest game mode this season has been Hardpoint, so Map 1 and Map 4 will be extremely important. However, I think LAG takes this series by a score of 3-1 just because their Search and Destroy has looked better. Next up, Minnesota Rocker versus Optic Texas. This could either be the most intense matchup of the season or the fastest 3-0 we've ever seen, and that entirely comes down to which Rocker we see on the day. Rocker are the most inconsistent team in the CDL with the most potential. We've seen both sides of it. Either everyone's frying, they look dominant on the map, they're making clutch plays, which got them to the winners final of Major 2, or they've looked horrible and get 3-0'd by a team like Seattle Surge, who before Major 3 couldn't put a search together to save their lives. The new Optic roster with Dan Ghosty seems hot, and if Rocker come to play, I see this going to a Game 5. If not, then I see Optic sweeping 3-0. The final match of this week's qualifiers features the Florida Mutineers versus the Seattle Surge. Now, earlier in the video, I already predicted Florida going into the series 0-3, but I do think their best bet to win at least one map is against the Surge. Do I think they're going to win the series? It would be really close if they do, but it's pretty unlikely. However, this series is a series that can build confidence for a roster that's currently in the blender, even if they do end up taking the L. With that being said, I think Seattle comfortably handles this series 3-1. That's it for my match predictions for the week. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and definitely be sure to watch the matches every day this weekend starting at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, either on the COD League channel or on one of the partnered watch parties. Be sure to check in next week for a breakdown of all the matches, as well as my predictions for the final week of qualifiers for Major 3. Thank you guys so much for the recent support on all the videos this week. I would really like this style of videos to become a weekly series on my channel, so all the support and feedback is appreciated. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next week.